Just as every great story has a mystery, every story has an end, and Gravity Falls is no exception. The Weirdmageddon trilogy was absolutely bone-chilling, some of the best 90-ish minutes of animation I've consumed to this day. Yet when Bill Cipher is defeated and Dipper and Mabel prepare to go home, you can't help but wonder, but what else happens? Well, dear viewer, it's been about 3 years since Gravity Falls came to a close, yet not everyone is on the up and up for what happened after the Oddpocalypse. That's where we got you covered. I'm your host Retro Nemo, and we're giving you the rundown on all the missing pieces of what happened after Weirdmageddon, today on Tuned In. Alright, so before we jump right into the nitty-gritty, let me jog your memory on how Gravity Falls came to a close in the first place. You may recall that Ford Pines, the author of the journals, informed Dipper that the containment unit he created for the interdimensional rift is beginning to crack. This rift is the only thing standing in the way between Bill Cipher and planetary conquest, a disastrous event that would bring the end of the world. Ford and Dipper embark on a journey for an adhesive to fix the rift found inside of a UFO, hidden in Gravity Falls. Yes, aliens! While this is happening, Mabel is scrambling to prepare for her and Dipper's 13th birthday, excited to take this step into teenagehood. Unfortunately, reality smacks Mabel in the face as she begins to discover the horrors that come with growing up. To make matters worse, she catches wind that Ford is offering Dipper the chance to stay in Gravity Falls as his apprentice. Mabel confronts Dipper, who tries to explain that things change when you grow up, causing Mabel to storm out of the shack, grabbing Dipper's backpack, and by proxy, the rift by accident. A suspicious Blendon Blandon approaches Mabel, offering her an eternal summer, so long as Mabel hands him the rift. She does so, stupidly. Blendon destroys the rift, and surprise, surprise, it's Bill Cipher possessing Blendon. Weirdmageddon is unleashed. Mabel is imprisoned in a bubble, Ford is held captive after being turned into a gold statue, and all of Journal 3 is destroyed. Oh yeah, and Bill destroys Time Baby. Desperate, Dipper seeks out for help only to find Wendy and eventually Seuss throwing down with Gideon along the way. Dipper manages to persuade Gideon to the right side and gets the key to liberate Mabel, entering the bubble only to discover his sister's been in a utopian paradise and now refuses to leave. Elsewhere, Bill discovers his apocalypse is confined to the town due to what's referred to as the natural law of weirdness magnetism, awakening Ford and demanding to get the equation to eliminate the barrier, though Ford is of course very much resistant to the proposal. Dipper almost succumbs alongside Wendy and Seuss, but remains level-headed enough to eventually bring Mabel back to her senses after a quick reminiscence about the good times they've had. With the gang back together, they head towards the Mystery Shack and reunite with Grunkle Stan. Oh, and a lot of side characters, both human and supernatural, are here too. They all build a giant Shacktron and head down towards Bill Cipher's Pyramid to rescue Ford. The Shacktron kicks major butt and even keeps Bill occupied as everyone arguably important infiltrates the pyramid, frees Ford and the rest of the town. Ford pulls out his trump card to defeat Bill, a Zodiac that will vanquish Cipher and end the apocalypse, or as we like to call it, this was at the end of the theme song for 4 years, better be something good, bro. The Zodiac works until it fails, thanks to Stan and Ford's bickering. Dipper and Mabel scramble to defeat Bill, yet it's no use. It looks like they've lost something for good, until Ford surrenders up his mind and shakes Bill's hand. Except not really, it was Stan the whole time. Bill got pranked. Ford uses the memory gun to wipe Stan's mind clean of everything, including Bill, destroying Cipher from existence. Weirdmageddon is undone and the town slowly returns back to normal, except for Stan, whose memory struggles to recover. But you guys know what happens from here. Stan gets his memory back, Seuss takes over the Mystery Shack, Dipper and Mabel go home. Wait, there's more? Yes, there is! Weirdmageddon 3, Take Back the Falls, only had so much time to wrap up the show itself. It's a shame. You could tell they wanted to do a lot more, but there's actually a lot more story for what happens before Dipper and Mabel set foot on the bus. There's even a little nugget of what happens when Dipper and Mabel return home. This information is scattered throughout various media, from books to scrapped scenes. Unfortunately, the former of those cost money, but that's where we got you covered. All of the missing pieces uncovered. Let's actually focus on Stan's memories for a little bit more. In the finale, it was portrayed as if everything came back to Stan the second Waddles jumped onto his face, when the truth is a little bit more emotional. As elaborated on Journal 3, available in your local bookstore, the effects of the memory gun can be unraveled by exposure to important images and people from one's past. Stan recovered faster than someone like McGucket due to the erasure being fresh, and everyone trying to jog his memory less than an hour after initial contact. Yet it still took about a week of what Dipper calls intensive scrapbook therapy to restore Stan back to himself. This is on top of feeding him his favorite foods, telling his life story, playing songs from when he was in high school, and driving him throughout town to revisit every spot he's ever been to. According to Dipper, Ford's the one who worked the hardest on restoring Stan's memory, being the only time anyone has ever seen Ford cry, which, if that doesn't pull at your heartstrings, nothing will. Many nights found Ford asleep on the couch next to Stan after describing their childhood. Ford profusely profusely apologizing for the mistakes he made along the way. Ford even pulled out an old film reel of their youth, snippets of them playing on the beach, banter at the dinner table, goofing off in the pawn shop, and even them hunting down the Jersey Devil. Hey, come to think of it, that's actually a full-fledged tale that exists in Lost Legends. Let us know if you want us to storytime that in the comments below. Maybe even subscribe along the way. Beyond Stan's memories is a lingering question you may be wondering about Ford's journals. A staple of the series that's a character in its own right. While you may not be surprised to learn that the journals were also restored in the aftermath of Weirdmageddon, not just how they were prior to Bill setting them on fire either, they were practically as good as new, with previous missing pages that were either ripped out or burned returning to all 3 entries. However, Dipper decided he didn't want to hold on to these journals forever. He felt as if he was following a guide to someone else's journey. It was time for him to experience a journey of his own. Thus, he started his own journal, complete with a pine tree instead of a 6-fingered hand, something to chronicle his own adventures. But the thing is, he didn't make the journal, it was a gift from Mabel, which was given to her by Mabel from another dimension. Oh yeah, did we forget to talk about that? Wouldn't be Gravity Falls if all the weirdness came to a close after Weirdmageddon. We were due for some after weirdness. You see, Gravity Falls wasn't the same. A giant fault line opened up in the forest, which Dipper dubbed Mabel's fault for obvious reasons. Alongside phone reception glitching out across the town and dimensional rips sprouting all across Gravity Falls, Ford, Stan, Dipper, and Mabel decide to have some special family bonding, patching the interdimensional rifts with alien adhesive. Mabel brings Waddles on this trip despite Dipper's concern, and the adorable little pig darts for one of the dimensional rips, not knowing any better. Mabel retrieves Waddles but ends up being dragged into the multiverse by a Lovecraftian 7-fingered giant hand. Mabel's descent lands her in a dimension MAB3L, or Mabel, if you didn't catch it. A dimension full of lost Mabels who have all shared a similar fate, drawn together due to the nature of them being similar beings. Talking Explainable, Sweater Mabel, who's a talking sweater, Tall Mabel, Fire Mabel, Emo Mabel, Zen Mabel, Cowboy Mabel, Dino Mabel, Morty Mabel, Stanbel, Table Mabel, Bob Ross Mabel, Molecularly Unstable Mabel, Lightbulb Mabel, you get the idea. A whole entire blind bag of Mabels. As Mabel begins to plot for a way home, Stan and Ford enter the multiverse in search of their grandniece, Ford using a distress beacon that summons an interdimensional kind Samaritan to give them a lift, at Ford's expense of being handcuffed in the back seat due to his status as a multi-dimensional criminal. Luckily for Mabel, in the meantime, she encounters a fellow normal Mabel who looks and behaves just like her. They manage to get a flare gun off a military expert Mabel, which alerts Stan and Ford on Mabel's location. Fortunately, things go awry for Mabel thereafter. She gets locked up in the bathroom by the other normal Mabel, who's really the most evil Mabel in the multiverse. So going forward, we'll just label her as Evil Mabel. Simple stuff. Evil Mabel masquerades as our proper Mabel and heads back with Stan and Ford, while our Mabel attempts to rally up troops to undo the predicament she found herself in, only to realize the other Mabels won't listen as they all share Mabel's fatal flaw. They're self-centered. This causes Mabel to give a speech that inspires all the Mabels to help her return home, grappling hook in hand. Ford notices there's something off with the Mabel they picked up, between her expansive vocabulary and cold demeanor, but Stan insists he knows his own niece. Ford tries to nip the situation in the bud before it escalates, yet he's outwitted by Evil Mabel. The two begin to bicker in their final moments until all the other Mabels put an end to the madness for one huge epic battle. Evil Mabel briefly has Mabel and the family as a whole on the ropes, until her sweater is removed, revealing her true identity as the cat-hating evildoer she truly is, ejecting her back into the multiverse. The other Mabels use the intergalactic vehicle as our Mabel returns to her own dimension with Stan and Ford. Reunited with Dipper, Mabel realizes how much of a handful she must have been over the summer. Better understanding her involvement in Weirdmageddon, Mabel apologizes for her constant string of selfishness throughout the summer. Icing on the cake, Mabel hands Dipper a gift from Mabipper, a combination of Mabel and Dipper, a book with a gold pine tree on it, Dipper's very own journal for his very own adventures. As the Pines twins inch closer and closer to the end of their summer, they weren't the only ones who tied up loose ends with their relationship. Q, Ford, and Fiddleford, former college roommates turned former scientific partners, turned former strangers, turned friends. Moments before forming the Zodiac in the final showdown against Bill, McGunkin and Ford had a brief reconciliation, but Ford felt as this wasn't enough and decided to pay his dear friend a visit. Ford was prepared for the worst in terms of McGunkin's mental state, but felt deeply responsible for the pain he caused once he saw McGunkin's living situation, all cooped up in a dump. Nevertheless, they chatted for hours, discussing Ford's adventures, which in return revealed a significant amount of McGunkin's intelligence had truly recovered. As a way to make things up to McGunkin, Ford insisted that Fiddleford submit his various blueprints of technological advances to the government, pursue a career as the inventor he truly is, giving him royalties that can get him beyond back on his feet and significantly upgrade his home, like, say, moving into the former Northwest family mansion. That's how it happened. Ford also encouraged McGunkin,
Old man
to reconnect with his family, which also worked out for him in the end, highlighting that sometimes second chances are worth a shot. Speaking of second chances, Ford vowed to spend the rest of his days reconciling with Stan. Ford realized that who he thought was the most selfish man in the world was the one who ended up saving the world. Although schemes, scams, and swindles weren't solely for Stan's own benefit in the long run. Stan is a hero and Ford is just a hero's brother. Ford was someone who believed being a great man meant being alone. He was caught up in the idea of being a lone hero in his own story. He felt as if he had believed in the Zodiac sooner, maybe none of this would have happened in the first place, and Bill would have been defeated before things got out of hand. With that said, the ball was in Stan's court. Ford was ready to make things right so long as he can get a chance. Of course, Stan granted him this chance, reuniting the original mystery twins. With more anomalies outside in the world beyond Gravity Falls, strange signals from the Arctic Ocean, a whole new world needs to be protected. The future was clear for both of them. As everyone celebrated their final night together in Gravity Falls, summer coming to a close, the characters we all knew and loved gathered around a campfire, leaving the past behind them and excited to head onto their respective futures. They indulged in burning all of Ford's cipher artifacts, scrolls, carpets, the window, anything related to Bill went up in flames, as they shared s'mores and spent time together until the sunrise. But this left one more thing. Well, three more things. Ford's journals. What to do with them? Do they go in the fire, or do they find a weirder, more Gravity Fallsier way to dispose of them? Ultimately, Mabel came up with what would be the final decision, throwing the journals into the bottomless pit. Where they end up, who ends up with them, no one knows, but that's okay. What matters is someone will find the story of a man who learned what it truly means to be a hero, what it means to inspire others, what happens when you put your trust in the wrong people, and what it means to really be happy. You guys know what happens from here. Seuss runs the Mystery Shack, Stan and Ford embark on an adventure, and Dipper and Mabel get on the bus to return home. However, there's one little tidbit, our only glimpse of Dipper and Mabel after they return to Piedmont, that you may not have seen. An animatic of the original extended Weirdmageddon 3 credits shows that Mabel presents her scrapbook to classmates, assumably some sort of what I did over my summer vacation project. Yet the only real reaction she gets out of anyone is her teacher's dismay when Waddles pops out of her backpack. This goes to show a few things. One, Mabel has photographic evidence of the supernatural occurrences in Gravity Falls, so I'm not sure if Dipper plans on sharing that these things exist with the world, especially since Weirdmageddon was contained to the town, but they have proof. This also proves Mabel has Waddles alongside her for the long haul. She's probably not supposed to bring him to school, but you can't help it. I love his adorable face. Finally, considering the emotionless reaction of the class in the animatic, it's entirely possible that the rest of the world just isn't all that impressed by the weirdness of Gravity Falls. Like, yeah, Mabel, that's cool, but I went to Daytona Beach over my summer vacation. Check out my sick tan. But of course, we all know the best part of Gravity Falls is its wonderful cast of characters. Now, it's always hard to say goodbye, but we can speculate on what happened to them after the show ends, based on all of the knowledge that we have, so let's try to do that now. First, let's take a look at some of the main characters. Dipper has Mystery Hunter in his blood. That's not gonna stop just because he left Gravity Falls. I'm willing to bet he fulfills his dream, which was explored in Legend of the Gobblewonker, by becoming a famous cryptid hunter. He probably starts as soon as he can and uses modern tools to get himself out there. He'll probably make a blog and a YouTube channel and sort of continue Ford's legacy, but in a modern time. Especially based on the Dipper's Guide to the Unexplained shorts that we got, it's safe to assume that he'll continue a series like that, and hopefully get fame and notoriety from it. For Dipper, the mystery never stops. One of Mabel's most memorable factors is all of her crazy sweaters. And considering her love for making sweaters and clothing throughout the series, all with very unique designs and patterns, it would make sense that she would go into fashion. She's creative, she's outgoing, and she takes initiative. I mean, that's the perfect recipe in becoming a successful fashion designer. She'll probably be met with roaring success because of who she is, not only because of her talent, but because of her personality. And she'll share her passion and creativity with others for the rest of her life. By the end of the series, we see Seuss getting what it seems like he always wanted, running the Mystery Shack, following in Stan's footsteps. He probably runs it very successfully for as long as he can before eventually passing it down, which would make the Mystery Shack this very special thing that gets handed down for generations. Besides that, I could see Seuss pursuing a career in gaming development and opening his own chain of arcade restaurant hybrids, judging by his love of them in the series. Think David Buster's, but with that Seuss flair. It's safe to say that he'll hopefully marry his girlfriend Melody and take care of Abuelita as he grows older and older, because he's such a genuinely caring person. He'll probably also be a great father. Now, we do get to see what Stan and Ford are doing after the series, but we can speculate even more on that. Sure, he's partaking in adventures with Ford, but I also believe that Stan might eventually find true love along his journey, finding a mate who's just as persuasive, cunning, and hilarious as he is, his other half. It's safe to say Ford will continue his exploration of the world's anomalies, while eventually finding a new apprentice like he once aimed to do with Dipper. However, this time not excluding his apprentice from the rest of the world, but showing his apprentice the world and his awesome family. I don't think that Ford will ever find his other half or somebody to call his own, but I also don't think romance is on the top of his list of priorities anyways. He's found his passion in life, his drive, and what he wants to work for, and what he lives for, and that's studying anomalies. Thankfully, it looks like he's getting to do that. Wendy was always a firecracker who took charge of her own life and is full of ambitions, far past working at the Mystery Shack. I think similar to Dipper, she would find notoriety in the occupation representation of a hunter, combining her very cool demeanor with her lumberjack skills passed down from her father. She's definitely not a city person. I can't see her moving to New York and trying to pursue Broadway. She'll probably lead a rough and tumble life of adventure and be very successful at it. Pacifica is one of my favorite characters because of just how far she came throughout the series, starting off as a complete brat and in the end realizing humility and how bad her family truly was, owning up to that. I think she'll continue separating her legacy from her parents and humble herself and create her own path to fame and riches without their assistance, maybe even becoming business partners with Maple's fashion brand. Pacifica is very smart and driven, so she'll probably end up becoming like a philanthropist, sharing her wealth with the world instead of hiding it and keeping it to herself, like her family did. And because she has that clarity and reflectiveness, realizing the error of her past family's ways, which would let her avoid making the same mistakes they did. God, I don't even want to imagine Gideon grown up. That's gonna be terrifying. He probably continues to try and become a regular, normal kid with a normal life, and finds moderate success in accomplishing that. I can see him going the way that a lot of child actors do, where they eventually hate acting and they just become normal people, like look at Macaulay Culkin. Hopefully he'll help his mother fully recover from causing her to go insane from his previously insidious behavior, and as he grows older, him and his crew of former prison mates would take over Bud Gleeful's family business of a car salesman, this time without any shady antics. When we last saw McGunkett, he was doing a lot better, and he looked like he was on his way to getting his memories back and reclaiming his sanity. We kind of already saw McGunkett's happily ever after, and we can assume he'll continue to find recognition and wealth in his inventions, reconnecting with his family along the way. It would be a happy ending for a heartwarming scientist who got dealt the wrong hand, and I like to think that everything works out for McGunkett. Robbie's a character that requires a lot more speculation than most. He went through a lot in the series, dating Wendy, then getting broken up with by Wendy, then finding love with Tambry in the end. He'll probably continue to work on his music career, ultimately peaking as an underground rock band that sounds kind of good. Not good, but like not bad either, you know what I mean? It's enough to sustain himself, but eventually he'd become an indie rock duo with Tambry, as the two stay together throughout the years. Their duo would find a little bit more success with her more stable, catchier direction. Bill is an unstoppable force of weirdness that's incredibly intelligent and incredibly evil. And as prophesized, warned, and heeded by many sources of the series, he'll probably eventually find a way to return. Eventually. Even if he does come back, I'm sure Ford and all of them would have created some sort of Bill Cipher protocol on how to handle his return. And I can't see him ever being truly successful, especially after getting so close last time and failing. But you never know. Maybe he's inhibiting the body of the guy reading this right now. I mean, he's not, but like, think about it. Maybe he is. I don't know. And there you have it, folks. That's what happens after Weirdmageddon in the world of Gravity Falls. What do you think? What else do you think could have happened? No answer is a wrong answer, unless one day we finally get official material that goes beyond everything we explored today. And I would love that. Let us know your thoughts and what we should cover next for this little What Happened After series in the comments below, or tweet your thoughts at Roundtable Vids and find my own takes at It's Retro Nemo. We're also on Instagram. Help the Roundtable grow by becoming a member of the channel or supporting us over on Patreon. Link in the description. If you enjoyed this video, throw a like and subscribe to the Roundtable for more great cartoon goodness. There's actually a few more Gravity Falls topics we want to cover. As always, guys, I'm Retro Nemo. This was a Gravity Falls breakdown, and I'll see you next time. Peace. One more thing, thank you so incredibly much to the talented Art with Coda for doing the incredible thumbnail for this video. You can find and support him on Tumblr, Instagram, and his own YouTube channel, All Art with Coda.